think of a more challenging environment where high performance is an absolute necessity than the military, or specifically the Air Force. And in particular, if you're going to fly a 20-ton piece of fairly complex machinery. So today, our presenter is Phil Frawley. He's known, I've just got his bio here to read you, it's quite impressive, and he's quite a humble guy as well, because when I was speaking to him during the week about what should I share with the group before he presents, he was like, oh, my son-in-law wrote that, it's, I'm a little bit embarrassed. But I think once you hear his bio and see his presentation, you'll appreciate his depth of experience and what he is going to be able to bring to your journey on leadership. So Phil is a human who was truly born to fly. As a young boy, he spent countless hours building model aeroplanes and dreaming of the day when he would finally get to control an aircraft. Phil's hard work, determination and perseverance finally paid off when, after 5 years as an aircraft technician, he was accepted into the Royal Australian Air Force 92 Pilots course in July 1974. So 43 years later, Phil is still flying for the RAF. He is currently a squadron leader at 76 Flying Squadron, flying the Hawk 127s, and he is still an active jet fighter pilot. In fact, he holds the Guinness World Record to prove it. Phil is also a qualified low-level demonstration pilot and has performed flight demonstrations for many years in various aircraft. He holds a civilian commercial pilot's license with a civilian level 2 fly instructor rating, and he spends many weekends sharing his joy of flying by taking people flying on jet fighters throughout the Hunter region. Phil is also local. He lives with his wife Kerry, who's also joined us tonight. Thanks, Kerry. And in his spare time, he enjoys surfing at our beautiful, pristine beaches. I would like you to please welcome Phil.
Hi everybody, welcome. How are we feeling?
Yeah, good.
Future leaders of tomorrow. Well, brilliant. Pardon me if I muck up a little bit of this technology, but we'll see how we go. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's how you spell my name. Finally overcame it. My career highlights there, everything basically with me happened in 5-year lots. I went to Saudi Arabia for 5 years after being the commanding officer of a squadron, a fighter squadron in the Royal Australian Air Force, and I'm an active fighter instructor with 76 Squadron in the RAF right now, and I've been that way for 14 years. So 44 years of military flying, close to 10,000 hours, 5,500 hours flying fighters, 2,200 hours as an instructor. I've trained 492 ADF students and have 1,000 hours or so on warbird flying. But that's me. There you go. So, leadership. Who here knows what it means or what it takes to be a good leader? Put your hand up if you know. All right, I want you all to put your hands up. Everybody put your hands up. Everybody knows what a good leader is. You've experienced good leadership. You've experienced bad leadership through your lives that you have gone through so far. All right? So now we're going to find out how much you do know about leadership. I want somebody to tell me what they think an attribute is of a good leader. Yep.
Respect.
Respect. Yep. Anybody else?
Communication.
Correct. Communication. I'm going to write that up in red. In big letters. And we'll expand on that as well. What else?
Hardworking.
Hardworking, yep. Would you call that diligence? Yeah?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else?
Passion.
Passion for your job?
Yep.
Yeah, let's put that up there. Anything else?
Compassion.
Compassion. Exactly right. Is everybody thinking all of these things over here? This table?
Charisma.
Big pardon?
Charisma.
Charisma. We'll expand on some of these as we go along.
Understanding.
Understanding. Motivation. Excellent. We're running out of room, but that's all right.
Time management.
Sorry.
Time management.
Time management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can give you their time.
Yeah. That probably fits into some of these as well, would you say? Right. Good. So now you can see that you all know what it takes to be a good leader. So what am I doing here? I'm going to just clarify some of these things, crystallise it in your mind, and hopefully you will be able to take away from this some points. The thing about leadership is it's subjective. All right? There is no 100% solution to being a good leader. All right? There is no panacea for me to get up here and say, this is the list, you must do this to be a good leader. Because the one thing that will separate all of you as you climb up through the corporate ladder, right, is your own personality. Everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. You need to be able to work on your weaknesses, correct them, and use your strengths to your best ability. Let's talk about communication. As a person in charge of a team or a group, What kind of communication are we talking about?
Clear communication?
Clear communication? Yep.
Positive.
Positive?
Open and transparent.
Sorry?
Open and transparent.
Open and transparent, that's an excellent point. The thing about communication with the people in your team is that you need to know what their job is. The only way that you can find out what they're doing with your tasks that you've given them is to go and talk to them. If you are in an ivory tower, sitting up in your office, and you don't know what the guy driving the forklift on the floor is doing, what his job is, what his problems might be, then you're probably not going to be able to effectively work your team. So you need to know the members of your team, get to know them. You need to be sometimes autocratic, sometimes conciliatory, allowing them to have their say. And that's very, very important. I, as a leader, when I was a commanding officer of the squadron, I would go down to the bare parts of the maintenance effort, and I would talk to them and find out what their problems were with maintenance, be it logistics, be it the job was very, very difficult. When you do those sort of things, the members of your team will come to appreciate you as having an idea about what they do and knowing about their problems. So communication is the thing that holds everything together. The next question is, are leaders born or are they made? Who here thinks they're a born leader? It's a good answer. I don't either. Some people may be born as leaders, but generally all of us train to become leaders, and that's why you're here. So that's a very, very good thing that you've done that, because that gives me a job. We're going to expand on some of these things as we go through. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at some leadership styles, and I want you to tell me what you think of these people. Who is this man? Churchill. All right. Was he a good leader?
I think so.
He led Great Britain through World War II. He rallied them in their darkest hours to get the British people to back the campaign, to provide their young people who were going to go out and get killed in the name of the country. I believe him to be a statesman. So, do we all know him? Everybody know him? Heard of him?
Heard of him.
Right. Do you agree that he was a good statesman? Yes? He was a very good talker. Some of his speeches were excellent. Does anybody know what his weaknesses might be? I know one, he was a drunk. Weaknesses? Anybody? Beg your pardon? He smoked cigars, yes he did. To a certain extent he was kind of autocratic. And a lot of leaders of this time were autocratic. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. What about this guy? Was he a good leader? Yeah. Certainly was. He got millions and millions of people to do some dastardly things along the way, didn't he? He was a dictator. What was his weaknesses? Anybody know? He was evil, certainly was.
Mental issues.
He had mental issues, he certainly did.
he only had one way, like, of looking, so. he
Exactly
wouldn't
right. He's a
listen to anybody
dictator.
else.
My way or the highway. Now, sometimes you will be confronted with problems with people within your team, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We in the Air Force like to say that 95% of a leader's problems come from 5% of your people. And so there will be times that you will be dictated. You'll need to be in order to get somebody to do what you need them to do. This should inspire some talk. What about this guy? A bit more frequent or local in the news. Is this guy a good leader? He is a champion in corporations, is he not?
Yeah.
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 All right, so he must be doing something right. When I looked at him and I tried to find what I thought was his main problem, I came up with the word bullish. It's bull at a gate, we'll do it now, and we'll do it this way, and that's that. So kind of a bullish leader. Does he accept feedback, negative feedback to himself? No. Well, you can see that in the press, can't you? So, and this one. So he's in the realms of Hitler, isn't he not? He's also a dictator and a very, very violent person. So we've gone from the statesman, dictator, bullish but still a pretty good leader, and back to a dictator again. So they're the leadership styles. In our training we see a broader range from laissez-faire all the way up to autocratic. Sometimes we play a little game that I like to call scissor paper rank, which I have a lot of, so I can just say to somebody, guess what, you're going to do it my way. And sometimes you have to do that with the people that are working for you if you're going to achieve those tasks. What we're going to do now is going to look at the Defence Force and how they look at leadership and how that leadership looks to the organisation. So the people of the Australian Defence Force, Army, Navy and Air Force, very highly motivated. What I want you to get out of this is draw parallels to what you want from your people. All right? So when you're choosing people or you are interviewing them people for your jobs, try and draw out of them, if you possibly can, these attributes. You won't always get highly educated people, but if these people have very good common sense, they may also suit your task. Within the Defence Force, competition for promotion, etc., is very, very high. We are always competing with our peers for promotion, for better jobs, etc., within the Defence Force. So we're very, very competitive. If you have people like that within your organisation, then you're possibly going to have somebody who's going to take your job later on, but that's all right. Intent on self-improvement. As a fighter pilot, I'm required to improve every day. For me, 110% is the minimum acceptable effort that I put into a task. So if you have people that are willing to improve themselves, be it through education, be it through knowledge of their job, then you're starting to have the right people in your team. Loyalty today is a commodity that we don't always see, particularly in your workforce. And the reason for that is that a lot of you will change jobs from time to time. And there are good reasons for that, mostly money, I would expect. I don't know. I'm not allowed to have any money. My wife keeps it all. But also your own way of improving throughout your career as you progress. In the past, 2, maybe 3 career changes was all you would get out of life, but these days it seems to be more closely to 5, I'm told. So within our organisation, and you'll be able to draw some parallels with this, your organisation, your company, you need an organisational structure and culture. You need to have the right amount of manpower. You can have too many or not enough. And that's a difficult task for you to work on when you determine what it is that you're trying to achieve with your goals within your organisation and how best to achieve those. You must have the appropriate manpower. And it's not an easy thing to work out. You will gain it with experience. Naturally, proper training, if you don't have the people that are properly trained, or your organisation doesn't commit to training those people effectively, right, you're going to have some gaps in your team. Not all tasks, not all organisations will require documentation to the extent that we do. But there needs to be written down guidance, be it rules, regulations, or even the way to go about a task. It's very, very important that you make sure that within your organisation, people know what the intent is. Documentation is one way of relaying that to the people within your team. Logistical support, very difficult to get. If you're a middle manager and the guy up the top doesn't want you to spend too much money. So you're going to have to do a little bit of staff work in order to gain the support that you want within your organisation. Everybody see how that's going to be a problem? It will be. For us, integrated philosophy of operations. So what does that mean? It means that we are working with other teams to achieve tasks. So we must be able to activate our philosophy within their team and theirs within ours, etc., so that once we've got that integration going, then everybody is pulling in the right direction and we're all on the same sheet of music. This, your masters will insist on, economy of effort. This is one of the principles of war, economy of effort. There's no point going in with 200,000 men when you only need 10, you see what I'm saying? Having 50 tanks when one will do. So economy of effort is one of the principles that we are guided by when we look to embark on a campaign. So draw the parallels with your organisation, see how that can fit in and help you when you devise your strategies to complete your tasks that you're given. Now, leadership through the Defence Force, of necessity, kind of fell behind what was happening within the civilian world. We were autocratic, so rank, there was no questioning anybody with rank when we were moving along. Was industry like that back in the 50s, 40s? Yes, it was. Think about bank managers, etc., etc. When you went to the bank, did you ever get to see the bank manager? Oh, no. No way in the world. Leaders of industry seem to be in their ivory towers with no way of you being accessed to them. Yep, did you have a question? Sorry. Ask questions and make comments at any time because I invite you to and I want you to. Post-Vietnam, there was a cultural shift. And when I say culture, there are three things that govern what we, the human race, do. Anybody know what they are? I've already said one, culture. Right? Anything else? Big driving force in the human race.
Religion?
Correct, religion. So religion, culture and society. They are the three things that drive the human race. All right? So we had to align ourselves with industry. We had to look at our management and our leadership techniques. What does that mean? It means that we suddenly realised that being autocratic and telling people what to do and ordering people around just wasn't working because there was a cultural shift. The other thing that influenced us was education. People were more educated. They were not prepared to put up with that kind of, excuse my French, crap, all right? They weren't prepared to put up with it. And so we had to modify the way that we went about our business. And you, as you go along and you develop, will also have to modify how you go and keep up with the latest trends of things that are happening all around you, particularly cultural pressures, etc., etc. It has a marked effect on the way that we do business and the way that we wage war in Afghanistan. So we looked to commercial industry because they were ahead of us. Naturally, they wanted to make money. We weren't there to make money. We were there to wage war. But we realised, unless we were getting efficient at what we were doing, we weren't going to be any good at it. So where did we look? Who knows who, around the 60s, 70s, 80s, who were the leaders in corporations in getting people to do what they, what country? Anybody know? Somebody say Toyota? Yep, Japan. All right? Japan just went ahead in leaps and bounds with the way that they treated their workers. All right? They had wonderful models for how to use their human resources. And they realised that human resources were the only thing that kept the whole thing together. And so you have to be very, very sensitive to how you treat your workforce. Click. So for us in the Defence Force, the way that we recruit our people is an exhaustive process. Our training is also exhaustive. For me, my training as a pilot to become a fighter pilot took close to 6 years. So it's a long, involved process and it is very heavy. Promotion prospects within our organisation are quite good if you're good at your job. We have reports done on us 6 monthly, and that takes into account all sorts of things: personality, qualities, performance in the job, effectiveness, being able to get along with others, those sorts of things. They're assessed every 6 months for us. Within our organisation, education, ongoing education is encouraged, and at times it's even enforced, particularly for officers. That means that our talent pool is quite broad. So we have a lot of people to choose from when we decide who is going to be the leaders of our organisation. In the past, it didn't work very well for us. We had what we called the ZIT principle. All the good guys were getting out at the bottom and all the rubbish was getting squeezed to the top. And so we suffered a lot from the hierarchy being inept and very, very poor at their jobs. But we've fixed that through training of our leaders. People of your age being trained and groomed for the top jobs. And now we have excellent hierarchy. The Navy, they have their problems. So for us, the principles taught in the Defence Force in training the leaders of tomorrow, you. The ability to inspire confidence and support among the people who are needed to achieve your operational goals. I'd like you to remember that. Inspire confidence in your people. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Down the bottom is followership. Who knows what followership is? Somewhere during this course of events that you're going through, you're going to be given a task. One of you within the team that you are allocated is going to be the subject matter expert. You will need to accept the fact that they are the ones who are capable of leading you through to that task, to the end game of that task. So it's very important, even though you might be a leader, there are going to be times in your life where you are going to go, oh, I'm not really good at doing this. It may be IT, so working with computers. It might be working machinery, something like that. And the task that has set your team requires somebody else to take the reins, and you need to support them fully. Understanding that they really do have the expertise for that particular task. When it's all finished and we revert back to whatever task we were doing before, bang, we're back to the normal way of operating. So within your team, collaboration, working together when you need to, very, very important. So for us in aircrew, our leadership is slightly different. For us, teamwork is essential. Even though we're in fighter aeroplanes, when we go out to fight an air battle, it's not just one of us. We're talking the minimum is 4. So there will be 4 of us in separate aeroplanes going out to meet an enemy. And in doing that, we need to communicate very, very effectively. So there's communication. We need to be able to do that over the radio with precise communication to ensure that everybody is doing the right thing as we go into that air battle. We work as teams all the time. The thing about my world is all of the people that I deal with on a daily basis are experts at their job. They're all very, very good at it. They're highly trained, highly motivated, dedicated, willing to do the best that they possibly can. So when you become the leader of a formation, you are dealing with these people who know your job backwards. So what do I want you to get out of that? I want you to be dedicated. I want you to be motivated. I want you to be the best that you possibly can as a leader. Work on your strengths. Make them work for you. Within the military, there's a saying, the best plans go out as soon as the first shot's fired. So when you develop a plan, you need to explore the what-ifs. What happens if this loader breaks down? Do we have a backup plan for that? Draw these things from your team. They'll be able to tell you the best paths that you can take should things go wrong. And I'm here to tell you, it's going to go wrong a lot of the time, and you need to be prepared for that. For us, decisions are made in split seconds. Calculations, when we're flying a fighter going into a battle, we're talking about hundreds of decisions being made in split seconds. We're flying the aeroplane, we're working the radar, we're looking at weaponry, we're determining where the enemy actually is and how best to prosecute them with economy of effort. There's no point firing 6 missiles into the one enemy aircraft when there's 5 others there waiting. You will be required to make split-second decisions as you progress. As you gain more experience, you'll have more confidence at being able to make those split decisions. Sometimes you'll need to just go, hey, yeah, we're just going to do it this way, we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. You may be required to do that from time to time. It's best if you can sit down and nut it out and make sure that the what-ifs don't climb on top of you. Occupational health and safety is going to govern everything you do in your organisation. Safety, even for us in our high-risk environment, is insisted upon. Our safety culture is incredibly inculcated through everything we do. So what we do, we will go through minimum risk plans, we'll go through what the risks are, how to mitigate them, what we've done to mitigate those risks before we get there. We don't just step out to an aeroplane. We brief first. Brief on what the mission is going to be, and half of that is the risks. What are the risks with this mission? Hitting somebody else, hitting the ground, having to eject, all of those sorts of things we go through before we actually walk out to the aeroplane. There's a lot involved. 90 minutes is the minimum. So, yes, even more so, because when you're dealing with a student, you're sitting in the back seat and he's in the front and he's guiding this thing around. You need to work on him as well as you and make sure, and there's some unpredictability about it, I can assure you. Certainly is, and yeah. So as an instructor, your experience is such that you are able to predict what this guy is going to do. And we'll talk a little bit more in working with people. So, mistakes are costly, but you need to understand that mistakes are going to be made, all right? And you need to find out why they were made, why those people made those mistakes. Generally, they'll have a good reason why it was done. It may come back to their training. They weren't trained to do the job properly. It might come back to their education, all right? The fact that they were assigned a task that they weren't capable of doing. That is probably one of the most dangerous aviation stunts that has ever been undertaken. So the guy who just talked those guys into doing that, he must have been a great leader as a Canadian aerobatic team. So for me, what do I like in my team? Communication. It is the thing that holds it all together. The more you talk to people, the more you find out, the more you will be able to effectively work your team. For us, discipline is paramount. If you've got a $40 million jet with hundreds of thousands of dollars of weaponry on it, then you need to have self-discipline. You need to know and act on what is right and what is wrong. Somebody said that, didn't they, earlier on? Pride in your profession. Being proud of what you do. Encouraging feedback. As a leader, you need to make sure that the people in your team are willing and able to tell you that something's not right. They need to be encouraged to tell you, mate, you shouldn't have done it that way. I'll tell you why, because in this process, this step here has been left out. We need to do that step, because if you don't do that, you're going to have an accident down here. Whoa, all right, sorry, let's do that. Now, when you deal with people, you have to be, as a leader, an amateur psychologist, all right? You need to be good at picking up on the vibes of people. we've already talked about this, understanding errors and their root cause. Everybody makes mistakes. If you jump on somebody for making a mistake without fully understanding the reason for that mistake, then you are letting the whole team down, right? Mistakes are going to be made. Understand that. Find out. When I have a student, I sit him down and go, why the hell did you do that? It doesn't work. But if I sit down and go, mate, look, at this point, you made a mistake. Now, can you tell me what your mind was thinking at the time? What were you thinking? He will let you know, oh, well, I thought that if I did this, I'd be able to get to that. Ah, okay. Did you think that maybe if you did this, you'd be able to get to that instead of making the mistake that you made? See what I'm saying? So you just find out from them. Communicate. As a leader, you must be the best that you possibly can at your job. All of us have been subjected to people who are in high positions who are, well, inept. Would you say that? Who's experienced that? Yep, all right. How annoying. When we see examples of bad leadership, that should help you to become a better leader. Fortunately for me in my career, I saw so many bad examples of horrible leadership, really bad human resource management. It was just dreadful. And like bad parenting, you know, when your parent did something, you go, I will never ever do that when I grow up. Well, here you are, you're growing up, and you're going to be leaders, so when you see bad examples, use that for your own education and go, whoa, I will never do that when I'm in a management position. Social skills, interpersonal relationships, very hard for some people. And I've seen a lot of leaders who have a lot of difficulty with interpersonal relationships, all right? When we have problems with our team, do you know how we solve it? A barbecue, all right? Have a barbecue, couple of beers, don't go bananas, but allow somebody to poke you in the chest, all right? Let people get it out, get it off their chest. Let them let you have it if you need to. It has to be respectful when you're dealing with people. There's no two ways about that. But I find if I'm having a lot of problems with team members, let's have a social function, let's get together, let's unwind, all right? Simple barbecue, couple of beers after work. Even if you, as a leader, just go away, right? Grab a few beers, the end of work, just walk in and go, let's talk. Put the beers on the table and let's have a talk about what's going wrong in our team. Again, you need to be an amateur psychologist for that. Decision-making skills. As you go through, you will get better and better at your decision-making skills. Weigh up the pros and cons of everything that you do where necessary, and sometimes you just have to make a quick decision, as we said before. These are great attributes, all right? I'm sorry, I'm in your way. The ability to praise, critique, delegate, motivate, and cope with team members. And that's exactly what I've been talking about. Always give praise where you can, because that will make your team members feel really important as an important cog in the team that you're building. Praise. Delegation. Delegation of minor tasks or even something a little bit more complex for some people. Give them the job. I had a problem with a young guy who was just partying the whole time, and I sent him away with 4 aeroplanes to Rockhampton and said, you're in charge of the whole lot, off you go. Whew. That changed up his mind, I can tell you that. all right, because he was suddenly confronted with a whole bunch of responsibility that I had delegated onto him, and he changed overnight. He suddenly realised taking 4 aeroplanes away, plus a whole bunch of troops, maintenance personnel, and younger pilots, he really had to come to the fore in order to make sure that the task that he had been given was successful and no trouble came from it. Haha. Conflict resolution. As you go through, you are going to find members of your team who don't get on. All right, the beer works for a while, but at some point you are going to be required to sit down with 2 people and sort out their differences, right? It's something you'll have to work on because it's not an easy thing, all right? So be prepared for it. That's the serious side. Now I'm going to give you an example of leadership that was strange and I was unprepared for. So I am leading a 4-ship formation of F-18s out of RAF Base Darwin coming back to RAF Base Williamtown. I'm the leader, so I've just got the autopilot in there and the auto throttles and everything, and the aeroplane's basically flying itself. My number 3, we go everywhere in walls, so that's 1.5 to 2 miles line abreast, 4 aeroplanes. We're in the contrail, so all the aeroplanes are leaving a contrail behind us. I just happened to look over at my number 3, who takes a dive, pulls up, settles back down. His wingman comes over, looks at him, does a big wing over back and settles down over there. Yeah. So I find out later on, when you're sitting in a Hornet cockpit, you've got about this much room. He'd been out for a curry in Darwin the night before, and he's sitting in a tiny little cockpit, and now it's come back to haunt him. And he has to go to the bathroom now. So what he does is he safes the ejection seat. He takes off all his flying gear, he pushes it up the rudder pedals, okay, in the rudder tunnels, and there's a box on the side which we holds all our publications, maps, etc., etc. He pulls those out, squats on the seat, puts it underneath, and in doing so, bump the autopilot off. So he goes into a dive. When you're squatting on the seat, you can't actually read the head-up display, which is our primary flight instrument. So he's there and he gets the aeroplane back and he plugs in the autopilot. I'm good, and continues on doing what he's doing. The wingman comes over, sees a naked man sitting on a seat and decides he doesn't want to be part of it. This guy did this again later on, about 100 miles down track. So some things will come along where you go, how did that happen? That was unexpected. I didn't believe that you could do that. It was just incredible. So sometimes funny things happen to you and you get to enjoy your life. So we'll finish off with a little video of me relaxing on the weekends, hopefully. you want to find out more about me, that's my son's website that he did on me. Okay, that's me. The old silverback. So now it's questions. You get now to grill me. Ask me questions. Anything, I don't mind.
Was that video at Winter?
Yes, it was, yeah, William Town Air Show, yeah.
You've been pissing me off for years.
I do what I do well.
I used to live in Raymond Terrace.
Oh, did you? Right, yeah. My in-laws do too in Raymond Terrace. I always look down as I go over the top. Yeah, all right.
I've got a question, Phil.
Yep.
So it seems like it's very kind of intense at the ADF or
Yep.
the RAF. How do you kind of go home and kind of switch off and kind of, not be like as formal or as regimented as you'll be at work? Like, how do you find that? Like,
The Air Force has kind of turned me into obsessive, what is it? You know that one?
Compulsive.
Yeah. So I'm a neat freak. My wife will attest to that. I like everything to be the way it is. Do I wind down? Yeah. There's various ways of doing that. After I've done a very difficult mission, I liken it to what rock stars talk about when they come off stage after they've had a great performance.
it's like cocaine.
You're so full of adrenaline. You're so full. I mean, I don't consider myself to be a rock star by any stretch, but I had the same adrenaline pumping through me as well. And so, what do I do to relax? Well, my wife will tell you I just watch TV and I don't talk. So, she thinks I'm supposed to be nice and bubbly when I come home and I flop on the land. And input, no output. So pretty much that's the way I do it. Although I do surf, so yeah. Anything else?
How do you manage underperformance?
How do I?
How do you manage underperformance?
We, through the training, the course that we do is extremely difficult, and we do get people who fail from time to time. These guys, and we've just had one just recently, but they still are RAF pilots, so they will go on to another aeroplane. What we found many years ago in a psychology testing program called Defence Mechanism Testing, and you're going to end up laughing at this, but they found out that some people are capable of three-dimensional thinking. Fighter pilots have to be able to think three-dimensionally. So I'm not only thinking about what I'm about to do, I'm thinking about what he's doing and what that guy's doing up there, where I have to project all of that, right? They discovered that people who think three-dimensionally have a physiological attribute in that they have more interconnections between their left and right hemisphere, and so they're capable of multitasking. Females have more interconnects between their left and right hemisphere, so I guess you could say fighter pilots are in touch with their feminine side, and that's why we're good at our job. But there you go. Yeah. So some people have got it, and some people don't. And like I say to those kids who fail, and I failed the first time I tried it. I failed the course and went away and came back. I flew C-130 Hercules aeroplanes for 5 years, and I came back. But I tell these guys, look, I can't play golf to save myself. I'm absolutely hopeless at it. And so you have to recognise your own limitations, right? And just go, yep, I'm unable to do that. And so you just have to get on with it and realise what your limitations are.
Spoke about like the safety side of things and the briefings and all that sort of stuff. In the heat of battle, when pressure's on to get out there, how much pressure is there, to cut corners on the briefings and get out in the plane? And who's sort of hitting the brakes and going?
That is an excellent point, and we spend a lot of time and training and effort to prevent that from happening, cutting corners. So it's not a case of kick the tyres, light the fires, we'll just get airborne and we'll brief once we're there sort of thing. We are unable to do that. What we do in times of conflict is we sit alert. So we will brief a mission with all the what-ifs that we're capable of dealing with, and we will go and sit in the aeroplane, 5-minute alert, 30-minute alert, that sort of thing. And we practice that quite a lot. In my job at the moment, I don't, but certainly the other guys do. Yeah.
Do you get issues with complacency, Phil, even if obviously people are so good at their job?
Yes, you do. Overconfidence is what we find the problem with. You get a young guy, and we have specific areas that we know are danger signs. So when a young guy has completed his F18 course, that's where he is the most danger to himself. So he's done all of that training, 5-6 years of training, and now there's no training, and so there's complacency comes into that. The other one is when they get 1,000 hours. So for some unknown reason, that is also a danger area for us at 1,000 hours. And I've done that 9 times, so still managed to survive it, that's all right. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
Question about the leadership one.
Yep.
I've heard that different opinions on it. So obviously you've got guys working for you.
Yep.
And there's a balance between a relationship with them as friends and a professional relationship.
Exactly right. Yep.
What's your opinion on where that line should be?
We in the Defence Force, you know, our training is such that we're good at that. I'll give you an example. The Chief of the Defence Force, Air Marshal Binskin, used to work for me. All right, he was working under me many, many years ago. So at the moment, I have a commanding officer in the squadron that I work in. He's way younger than me, and I've actually trained him. But we accept the fact, followership, right? We accept the fact he's in charge. It's his train set, we will do his bidding. And something you'll probably have to do, yeah?
Sounds like you're pretty good at recognising this is business, this is personal.
Exactly right. So I will call him sir at all times in the military, and I'll see him socially, it's mate or Nev.
So, getting back, where do you draw the line though between like friendship or mateship and being boss? Because it becomes hard.
Sometimes outside of work.
Yeah, outside of work. So, you know, once you're their boss at work, you go out and go and play golf or go fishing with the guys, and you become good mates.
Mm-hmm.
But then at work, if something comes up, you're like, mate, that's not what I asked you to do. You've got to do this. You get that sort of come back with the mates. We see it in their face.
Yes.
How do you draw the line in that? Like, is there any way other than just being a psychologist? That's right. Yeah.
Well, I think if you communicate to that person, go, mate, look, when I'm at work, I'm sorry, but, you know, I am the boss, and, you know, we're just going to have to treat that reasonably formally in front of everybody else. So within your team, you're great mates with this guy, but, you know, when you're at work, hey, mate, she's purely professional. If he's a good friend, he will understand that, and he will go, yep, got it, no worries. And that's what I do, you know, at work, because most of these guys, as I said, I've trained, and, you know, I've called them, we call our junior officers bog rats. So they've been bog rats when I've been senior to them and commanding them as a commanding officer. Now they're, you know, higher up than me, and so I need to just go at work formally around other people, it's sir. And we all understand that. And that's something you need to foster within your team.
You said motivation is a big thing for when you're employing people in the Defence Force. Obviously, motivation is very different for everybody.
It is.
How have you sort of identified what motivates different people?
I guess by talking to them, the thing you have to understand in my job, the psyche of a fighter pilot is we are in a very, very narrow demographic. We are 0.001% of the population, and our personality traits are very, very similar. That's why we all get on, because we're all like each other. All right? So, to answer your question, in the interview process you're talking about when looking for a job?
Or even, I suppose, when you're looking at, okay, what motivates you, what's going to get you to the next level? You know, is it is it that I just praise you? Is that enough that keeps you happy and keeps you motivated to keep doing what you're doing? Or, you know, is it all about reward, recognition, or do you want me to just yell at you and scream at you and that's what motivates you?
For some people, you know, being exactly told all the time what to do. When I was training to be a pilot, I was having a lot of problems, and my instructor just decided, well, I'll just punch him in the side of the helmet, see if that motivated him. And I just went, I'll show you. That was what I needed, right? And so that got me motivated. So we're back to the amateur psychology, really, all right? So when you deal with people, but the thing about it is job satisfaction, okay? Those people are satisfied with their job and they feel that their job is important. And that's what I mean. Go down to the coalface and, you know, talk to the guy on the loader and go, man, that is a highly skilled job you got there. That's impressive. I like the way you do that sort of stuff, you know. That will encourage him with his job satisfaction because you go, hey, yeah, I am good at my job, you know, that sort of thing. So, but, you know, you can't be overdoing it. You can't be up there going, mate, you're fantastic, you know, because I'll go,
It's gotta be sincere,
Sorry?
It's gotta be like sincere.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Sincerity is everything. Once you can fake that, you've got it made. Yeah. So what have we learnt today?
That you can poo while you're flying.
Yeah. Important. That's important. I'm glad. Did you write that down? I got it right. Okay. All right.
That there's different types. That there's different types of leaders.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that we're, like all of us here today are leaders, but we're all going to be different kinds of leaders.
And the thing is, your individual personalities, right, are going to require different ways of achieving your leadership skills. Right? What might work for one might not work for another. And that's what I said, I don't have the 100% solution for you as an individual on how to become a good leader. You need to take away all the things that you've learned in these programs and decide what's best, what works best for you. And look, as I said, at your strengths and your weaknesses and work on those. All right? Yeah. Communication is the key. All right? And respect. They're good points up there. I hope you take them away. Any final questions?
Maybe just on leadership.
Yep.
Did you, whether it was you or one of those guys talking about who started off below you and up, do you take us and put together, start off on leadership style and gave yourself a change, or did you see one of the guys under you, have a
For me?
leadership style and change?
For me?
Yeah.
I was an Air Force technician. I worked on aeroplanes for 5 years. And during that time, the senior non-commissioned officers in charge of me, some of them were the worst possible leaders I've ever come across. And as I said to you, it was like bad parenting. You know, I went, I'm never ever going to be like that. Then I went to fighters, and then I got suspended and I failed the course, and I went to C-130 Hercules. And in that, the captains of these aeroplanes were just horrible people. Absolutely horrible. It was, you know, get the aeroplane airborne, put the autopilot in and start grilling the co-pilot until he tears up. It was, I'm never ever going to do that. And they never ever asked the rest of the crew their opinions on how to go about things. So we have a thing called crew resource management, which is all about interaction with teams, etc., much the same as what you're doing now. And I got to be a captain of C-130s very early on the piece, not because I was good, but because all the other captains left and went to the airlines, and I was standing there with my mate who joined at the same time. We're captains now? I was a 25-year-old overseas captain on C-130s, taking that monster big aeroplane everywhere. So I was forced into crew resource management because I didn't know diddly about most of what was going on behind me. So I was always, what do you think, engineer, about how we should do that? Because, you know, I'd like your expert opinion. See? So it can work for you, that's for sure. And that's how I learnt about before we even use career resource management in the Air Force, I learned about that, about talking to your team members and asking them their opinions on how you go about achieving certain goals and tasks, etc., particularly complex ones.
On that note though, like something I'm facing at work at the moment is there's professionals within your organisation that you go to for expert advice.
Yes.
So you go to them, you tell them what your needs are, and you expect that they're going to feed that back to you, and it's going to happen, and you're in no position, you're an equal with everyone in the organisation that you're talking to. And then for some reason that information doesn't come back to you, and then someone else I'm project manager of this project at the moment, someone else is on your case saying you're not doing your job because that person's not doing their job.
Right.
So you get to the point where you're like, but they're a professional, I'm not going to undermine them. I've asked them, this is what I need, this is when I need it, and it's not coming back. So trying to manage that when you're an equal.
So let's look at that from the point of view of an error. So go to that person and say, I asked for this task to be done at this particular time, and we're having a few problems over the other side. Can you tell me why it wasn't done? Is there a problem? Is there something I need to do for you in order for this task to be done?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying a lot.
Yeah.
Is there something I need to do for you? And it starts to get frustrating when
It does.
when they're professionals in their own right.
Yes.
But they're busy too. They're juggling
Yeah.
lots of projects
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean, just having tradies come to your house.
yeah, true.
Ask my wife. She deals with them. I can't deal with them. Yeah. And it also comes back to that old thing, communication, going and talking to them and finding out why these things aren't being done. And sometimes it may happen, just say to them, look, man, I'm going to have to elevate this because you are not giving me what is necessary for this task to be done. So I'm warning you, I'm going to have to go higher and
It's hard
make
to
sure.
do that with your peers and
It is very hard, and you're going to end up in conflict resolution at some point, but it'll be you and him and your leader above you trying to work it out. So, yeah. All done?
Yes. Thank you, Phil. It's been a really great afternoon to hear about yourself, and I'm sure we're very familiar with the jet planes that fly around Newcastle. So it's been really good to have some insight into how the Defence Force works, and particularly in the role of leadership. I've just got my takeaways written down here, the reminder of our ability as leaders to not only the need to delegate and critique our team, but also to praise and to motivate them. And then the other thing that I'm really liking is the idea of fellowship. So it being as critical to be able to work in a team and let the subject matter expert come to the fore, as well as being able to lead that team. So thank you very much. If you'd like to join with me in thanking Phil for his contribution.